Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Season 2 of the Amicable Divorce Network podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Moore-Grant. If you've been listening to us, you know that this season we are going chapter by chapter through the Amicable Divorce Network's new book, Divorce Amicably, Your Roadmap to Resolution. And we are going through each step of the process to help you save your time, money, and sanity through the entire divorce process, start to finish. And we've made it to chapter 19. This happens to be a chapter that I have written, so I have a very special guest with me today in order to discuss this. This chapter is hiring a divorce attorney, and I am joined by Rob Roseman, who you all may know from WTF Divorce. If you are on social media and looking at any divorce content, you have probably come across Rob. His specialty is connecting people with divorce professionals and giving everybody a good laugh along the way, because being able to get a little bit of connectivity and chuckle during some very difficult times really is nice for people to see. Thank you for joining me, Rob.
Thank you, Tracy. That is a perfect intro for what we do. And this is like, if I could go back in time to when I got divorced and I knew even 1% of these things, I feel like I would have, to your point, saved myself a lot of time, money, and most importantly, sanity.
So something I think that's important to note is that you're divorced and you happened to have stumbled upon a member of the Amicable Divorce Network as your attorney. And so you ended up having, I think, probably a better experience than most because you used one of our Georgia members. But some people, I wrote this chapter because they just don't know what to do. They're sort of spinning their wheels. They might be attracted by a flashy sign or marketing and just going on Google and seeing the first ad that pops up. And so I wanted to give them some really meaningful advice on how to get to the right person like you happen to do.
Yes, I did get very lucky. He had good Google reviews. But I will say I did kind of have a little bit of a cheat code. A friend of mine is a South Florida divorce attorney. And I said to him, I have no idea what to ask on this consultation, which we're going to talk about. Mm-hmm. Can you at least just be on the phone with me for 5 minutes and just tell me? And he sat and listened. He didn't even really ask much. And after the call, he's like, you're vetted. Check. You go with him. So it was like, I know the feeling of just being like, you don't even know what you don't know. And that's why it's so important to have some education, some guidance when you make what's probably the most important decision of your divorce process.
Yeah, deciding how to get divorced and who's going to guide you through that journey are incredibly important. And I see so many people just make wrong turns that are very costly and very damaging to their families. So we hope in doing this book that we can, move people in the right direction, help them make more informed decisions, and get the type of divorce that they want and can afford.
Yeah, so for the people that are, and you guys are the Amicable Divorce Network, so I imagine a lot of people that are approaching you are like, oh, we're going to work all this out. We just got to sign a couple papers and it'll all get done. I'm sure everybody's had that conversation with their partner where they're like, we don't even need lawyers. Or like, let's just do this on the same page. And when you first hear it, you're like, that does sound nice.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, is that like a common question you guys get? Can you just be our attorney, Tracy, and wrap this up?
Yeah, I think there's two common questions I get. One is people will say we are not amicable, so we can't use this process. And that's a misconception because it's the professionals who are vetted for being reasonable people and being able to have professional conversations. The clients have incredibly complex issues, traditional divorces. If they're the kind of clients that have already worked a lot of stuff out, that's a unicorn for us. That's great. We hope we have more of those, but a lot of times we're just dealing with very complex cases outside of the court system. But I get asked almost daily, can you just represent both of us? Can both attorneys or can both clients come to the consults? And the answer is no. Now, first, I am in Georgia, but this is true for most states. You cannot, as an attorney, represent two clients. I can't give legal advice that serves both parties because their interests are opposite in a divorce. And so where I'm advising the client, a good way to calculate this or to draft this is to do this way. That may not be what's best for the other party. Now, a lot of times we reach, agreements that are mutually beneficial, but I can only give legal advice and advocate for one person. So it's important to know that when you're hiring your attorney, they are your advocate, and the other person either can get somebody else in the Amicable Divorce Network or just find somebody in the network to review the paperwork, but I cannot meet with both parties.
That's good to know. So most divorces, let's be honest, once you drop that bomb on the other person, it's not going to be amicable at first.
Yeah.
So that's not a deal breaker if you guys aren't kumbaya and like, oh, let's just do this
Not
together.
at all. I mean, we try to send the other party a very nice communication that says we want this to be resolution focused, child focused. This is a cheaper process, and try to guide them. And they get a beautiful notebook like this. And I've had people who received this communication from another attorney, and they bring me this notebook and it's all crumpled up. And so they will say, I got all this information, and at first I was very upset, but I dug it out of the trash because in the end, if this divorce is going to happen, I definitely want it to be cost effective and streamlined. So, tell me more about it. So, the parties rarely are the amicable ones. Honestly, they usually are having all the same feelings, all the same issues as a traditional divorce.
So let's say I don't think it's a very complex, and I say, oh, can you just draw up the paperwork for us? Or can you just serve as the mediator and get this done? It's still going to be the same issues that you said?
Well, I can actually, and any attorney can draw up your divorce paperwork. So there's documents that get filed with the court that are settlement documents, notice documents. And so it is very common for people to use one lawyer to draw up all of that paperwork. I can send it home with my client, mail it to the other person, whatever it is that's needed. Now, if the other client has questions about the paperwork, like how did you arrive at this child support calculation, or what does this provision mean? I can't answer that for them. And not because I'm trying to be difficult, but because I can't advise the other client. And so in that circumstance, we would recommend that they reach out to somebody in the Amicable Divorce Network who's vetted for being resolution focused, who won't see this as an opportunity to blow up your family in case and get more money, who will just answer your questions. And so a lot of our members do serve in sort of an advisory capacity where one person has gotten a packet of paperwork and they go to another attorney to get their questions answered and get it reviewed in a very streamlined manner.
Yeah, so I imagine that's a big concern with people is like, I like my attorney. I know they have our best interest at heart, but who knows what's going on with their attorney. So is that something that you say you can't have the same attorney, but if you're in this wide net of amicable divorce attorneys, you can at least have the peace of mind that like you're both working towards the same resolution?
Absolutely. The professionals are vetted for being experienced, resolution focused, and engaging in fair billing practices. And so when you stay within the amicable divorce group and ecosystem, so to speak, you know that the other attorney isn't going to blow it up and do something contrary to the client wishes. They're going to do, I just want my questions answered. Great. Let me answer your questions. Let's provide exactly the service that you want in this situation. Unfortunately, there's bad actors out there, and I've had this happen many times in my career, which is why I founded the network. Where the other client would get this very nice packet of paperwork, take it to a random attorney who would then charge them thousands of dollars, tell them all these things are wrong with the paperwork, engage in formal discovery, do all these high conflict things. And I had a couple of situations where then the opposing client couldn't afford those bills, didn't understand why any of this had happened. They just had a few questions and came in and signed the original paperwork because it was in the end fine with them. And so unfortunately, because of those bad actors, we've created this vetted group of professionals where clients can have some confidence that the people they are hiring will align with their goals.
So that leads to another question I have. When you're looking for people, let's say I've never heard of the Amicable Divorce Network. I go on Google or whatever site to figure out there are red flags I should watch out for that I can see in somebody's website, or will I not know until the consult? What kind of things should I have my radar up?
I think the first thing is there are a lot of professionals who are marketing now that they provide amicable divorce. And it's because this process and this organization has gained a lot of popularity and has helped a lot of people. And so there are people who aren't in our network who are now marketing that they offer that service, and they don't. And so one way to truly find if they are a member of our organization and are a vetted professional is to go to our database. You go to amicableddivorcenetwork.com or divorce amicably.com. At the top is a membership directory, and you search by state, profession, whatever it is that you need, and then you can be assured that that person is actually vetted. Some of the things you may not know until you meet for them for a consult. It's hard to know. I would read their bios and see what they're all about. Typically people who are resolution focused are also mediators. They're not just litigators. They usually have diversified their practice and added some skills in the resolution space, so that's something to look for. There are firms who set up your consult not with a lawyer. They'll set it up with a paralegal. And all the paralegal can do, because they cannot give you legal advice, is they can only capture information. Tell me your date of marriage, what's your name, how many kids do you have? And that's all that's happening in that consult. But the client thinks they've had a consult. Now, the reality is your spouse could call that same firm, and that wasn't a consult. It didn't create a legal conflict, and so now they could hire that firm. So unless you're meeting with an actual attorney, you are not getting legal advice that's meaningful for this consult, and you're not creating a legal conflict for your spouse to not be able to hire that firm. So you really haven't gotten anywhere. You haven't established any sort of legal relationships. That's one way that people or firms are trying to circumvent sort of the legal advice. Another red flag is if your lawyer guarantees you results. If they say, oh, I will absolutely be able to get you the house, or absolutely be able to get you this amount of spousal support, or something like that. Nobody knows that. Nobody has a crystal ball. That is a complete unknown. When you hand your case over to a judge, it is the Wild West. First of all, even if you're assigned a particular judge, a different judge can walk out. That judge might be sick and they called in a visiting judge, or was, had another conflict or something like that. So we see that happen a lot. A random judge walks out, so you may have prepared your whole case based on this judge and their feelings. The second is, when you hand that over, you don't know what's going to happen. And so you absolutely should be wary of anybody that says they can absolutely get you anything and guarantees results. That's a red flag. That's actually unethical and inappropriate. They shouldn't be doing that.
And what about the attorneys? You always hear like the shark, the bulldog, we're going to get them. Maybe you're coming in with, you've been cheated on, you've been jaded, and they're playing into that. Is that something that, well, it might feel good in the moment, somebody has my back, might not be 6 months down the road the attorney that you want to go with?
Yeah, it's very expensive to hire an attorney's emotion and their anger. And so a lot of egregious things happen to people that lead to a divorce. I, was in a marriage that had infidelity, and I absolutely know how devastating and harmful that is, and painful. And for you to want to litigate those types of issues and to have a lawyer that's going to send ugly emails, file a ton of documents. The reality is that about 95% of cases settle outside of court. So in doing all of those litigation posture types of things, you might feel very good in that moment. You get a copy of that angry email and you're like, yes, you really stuck it to them, lawyer. Well, that email probably cost you a few $100s, and the reality is it didn't advance your case at all. The judge will never see it. It doesn't create anything that's positive for you. It didn't get you anything that you needed in the case, and it didn't move your case forward. So you really need to look at what you're hiring an attorney for. And if you're saying, I want to hire their anger to be a megaphone for how bad I feel, and I want them to project that anger at the other person or into the court system, that is the most expensive waste of your funds that you could spend in a divorce case. It is 100% wasteful, other than the fact that it might make you feel good until you get that first bill from the attorney and see that they billed $5,000 in 1 month, and your budget is blown for this process. And so you really want to think about what you're hiring an attorney for. Are you hiring them for their expertise? For their ability, to give you legal advice on how to get things, resolved? Do they have, fair billing practices? Do they have a particular niche experience in something that's important to you, like small business or child custody or child development, even special needs children? I mean, specialists in all of these areas exist, and you need to really focus on hiring your attorney for the things that will actually benefit you, because hiring them to be angry for you is a complete waste of time and money.
That's such a great point. I never heard it framed like that, because it's usually, a lot of times our attorney is the only person that is working with us. So it's almost like, go find a therapist for the anger stuff. Go join a boxing class.
Yeah.
Go get a high school kid to TP their house. Bad idea, but find a better way to get your anger
Toilet
out.
paper is expensive these days, Rob.
Exactly.
I mean, we used to throw toilet paper and eggs at houses, and I mean, think of the cost of that type of prank these days. But yeah, I mean, if you have these feelings and you are just, so angry and upset, the best thing that you can do is to get a therapist. Work on moving yourself forward and through this process so that you're a healthier person, you're a happier person, you're a better parent for your kids. Whatever it is, work with that with the right professional. The lawyer is not a mental health professional. They're not trained to help you with those issues, but a ton of them will take your money and amplify that anger into the court system. But the reality is you're going to get a huge bill for that. And if you were looking at sort of a little tracker of, how close is my case to the finish line, it didn't move any closer to the finish line. It didn't do anything for you other than make you feel good for like 5 seconds. So, really objectively think about what your goals are and what you want to spend your money on. They'll take your money and they'll do it. But, wouldn't you rather, as the client, have the money to go on a beautiful healing vacation?
That's it's almost like I'm going to go out and get wasted and party, and then the next day you're the one with the hangover and you've lost all your money, when in reality it's like, instead of paying that attorney to drag you through the mud, go to Sedona for a weekend and you'll have you'll feel better, your case will get done. There's like a lot of better ways to use your funds.
And we have lots of examples and recommendations on those types of healing retreats as well, because we have a wellness category. But I think you phrase it very very beautifully, and I'm going to take this from you, which is you will have an attorney bill hangover. You will be like, what have I done? Yeah. What were all those emails? Oh, I had to pay for every one of those. I had to pay for that motion that never had a hearing and all those documents and all that type of stuff that didn't do anything for me. Yeah, you'll definitely have a bill hangover after that first month or two.
Yeah, you're the content queen. Use that one. That'll be a good one. Because it does, to your point, it feels good in the moment. Somebody's advocating for me. Somebody's going to punish them. In reality, it doesn't matter, and you're the only one that's going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that consultation. I've heard some people say free consult, and then I just heard from you, you might be talking to a paralegal who's just getting your social security number.
Yeah.
Why do a lot of lawyers charge for consultations?
Well, lawyers do sell their time and their expertise. And so that's one thing to think about when you're going for a consult. You are paying for their time and they are giving you legal advice in that consult. So if you're meeting with a paralegal or you're not getting legal advice, that probably should be free. You shouldn't be paying a paralegal for anything, but you're getting legal advice and their feedback on your situation. Secondly, people often don't understand. So, law firm, and we have 9 attorneys here. So if John Smith comes in and he has a consult with me for his divorce, nobody in my firm can represent his wife. Nobody can be the mediator in the case. Nobody can be the guardian ad litem should one be needed. And for some of our civil attorneys, nobody could ever sue John Smith for even a civil matter, even a car accident or anything like that. So it conflicts the entire firm of being able to handle any role in the family law case. So it is a serious relationship. It does establish an attorney-client relationship, even if it's just a consult. And so a lot of firms do take that quite seriously and do charge for that, because it does prevent them from being involved in any manner in the future. So they could potentially, lose a case. And so that's often why we see charges for consults.
I hadn't thought of that. Have people, I'm sure everybody's tried everything. Are there strategically, I'm going to go talk to this lawyer, and this lawyer, just so my soon-to-be ex can't speak to them?
Yeah, I've definitely even had people say that to me, I'm here just to conflict out your firm. And that's really stupid. Don't do that. I'm in a medium-sized small town. I would say there's only so many attorneys, and when people go around and conflict out all the good ones who would get your case resolved, you're really driving your spouse out of the geographic area towards somebody who's probably not as familiar with the attorneys, doesn't have as good a working relationship, increased cost. So I think that's in movies or something where people get that idea. It's a terrible idea. You should be meeting with attorneys who you're interested in hiring, comparing their approaches, seeing who is a good fit for you. It's sort of like going on speed dating and seeing if there's somebody you want to move forward with. And so, do take it seriously. And that's another reason why attorneys charge is also to sort of minimize people from doing that.
Yeah, it makes sense. And it's again counterintuitive that like the person that you might hate the most in the world right now, it would be in both your best interest for them to have a good attorney. You know, you don't want to stick them.
You don't want them to have
some...
a bad attorney. You know, if it's somebody that they have to go to who doesn't specialize in family law, isn't familiar with the jurisdiction, it's actually going to make things more difficult and expensive for you. If you have two attorneys and I have an example of this in the book where I take an example of, because this happens, where people drop their spouse from their health insurance at open enrollment. And they don't know. They think, oh, I'm going through a divorce, so I'm just going to go ahead and drop them. And they don't know you're not supposed to do that. And so I have an example in the book where it goes sort of line by line on how two amicable attorneys would solve that problem and how much it might cost, as opposed to high conflict attorneys and the months and, you know, thousands of dollars it would take to resolve that issue, as opposed to probably some simple communication between two attorneys, and in the time frame of being able to put the spouse back on the health insurance because open enrollment is still open. So that's something we see often and are able to easily resolve. So I use that example to compare the huge cost difference.
Yeah. So I'd say that is probably, if you ask, we ask on our Instagram a lot, what's the biggest pain point of divorce? And usually it's two things. It's taking forever, and related, it's costing me way more than I thought it would.
Yeah.
When you go into that consultation, is that a conversation that you should have with your attorney? You're like, is this going to cost me $1,000, $50,000? How do you go about that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, most likely they're probably not going to be able to give you an exact number in that moment. But something that I did in the book, it's on page 109, is a little chart here. It has questions that you should sit down and ask yourself before you go into a consult, and then how you ask the attorney corresponding questions. And one of the things that I think is really key that I have rarely, if ever, been told is what somebody's budget is for the divorce. And so people keep this sort of a secret. They might say, well, I only really have $5,000 to spend on this because otherwise, you know, I'm going to have to use a credit card or tap equity in the home or something like that. Make sure that you're expressing that to the attorney and saying, my budget for this is $5,000 to get through this case. And also asking, is that realistic? You know, I have these issues, they're easy or they're complex, whatever they are. Do you think we can get those resolved for $5,000? And if not, you know, what do you think the cost will be? Is there anything I can do to help you streamline costs? And, you know, how long do you anticipate this will take? Because a lot of people don't understand that there are waiting periods in some states to get a divorce, and that the process sometimes has delays built into it. So in a traditional divorce in Georgia, somebody gets served one day and then they don't file an answer for 31 days. In the amicable process, we really streamline all of that and, you know, cut down the deadlines if that's what people want, and are able to customize that for the parties. So it's important, though, to really express and ask, you know, what's their projection on cost and time, so that you don't go sideways with the attorney at some point because your expectations, you know, were 3 months and $5,000, and, you know, they could have told you from the beginning we're looking at, you know, 8 months and, you know, $10,000. So it's important to have those difficult conversations.
And to make the most of that consultation, is that something that you would say show up with a few documents, maybe a one-page spreadsheet of, I have the house, we have these stocks, we have this? So maybe is that helpful to an attorney to see what you're actually dealing with?
Usually. Now, I would say ask when you're setting up the appointment, what does this attorney like for me to bring to a consult? And I always tell people when they ask me that question, I say, bring me all your questions and let's go through them. I personally, and a lot of members of the Amicable Divorce Network, use a technology software where the client will actually provide the information for their case, those stocks, those bonds, the value of the house, the mortgage, so that that information isn't passing through the lawyer's office and increasing cost for simply organizing and inputting that information. The client does that. So I always tell, you know, if you have questions, bring them. If you have a document you want me to review, bring it. You know, let's, you know, focus on what the clients need in that moment. Because a lot of times that first consult is emotional, and people often have a lot of anxiety that surround that.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of a story. Once I was divorced for a couple of years, and I was helping friends that you become like the divorce guru, and
everybody's
like,
calling you. You've done this. Tell me what to do.
Yeah, and I think I was on a prelim call that he had with my attorney, like wasn't a consultation, and I heard the things he was asking, and I'm like, you're wasting your call. He was just like, and she did this, and then she did this, and I'm like, if I understand where he's coming from, but like when you can prepare a little, you can just maximize your time, the lawyer's time, and again, save money. So I think it's on us to kind of help educate people.
Yeah, and I think when people come to that consult, sometimes I know they just want to be heard. They want to tell me the whole story about how we arrived at this point and, you know, what has happened to them and how they feel, and that's completely fine. And I want to understand everybody's case, but it is story building, you know, really. And so if you do have sometimes attorneys just do consults for 15, 30 minutes or an hour. So you really are actually trying to get a feel for the attorney. They're not really interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them. And so, you know, I think a way your friend could have rephrased that is, you know, to be, I feel like my wife has, you know, done these things. How would that be handled in my case? Is that important to my case? Do you need documentation about that to help my case? You know, is that a legal ground that we would pursue? You know, and sort of flush it out that way. So there's a way to rephrase some of these things so that the client is getting the helpful information they need from the attorney for that interview. It's like your job interviewing your attorney. So, you know, you should be getting information from them.
Yeah, I think we all forget that we are interviewing the attorney and it's not the other way. Like, we're paying the attorney, they're working for us.
Yes.
But usually we're in such a state of mind that we're just like, here are the keys, just make this go away.
Yeah, absolutely. And people need to really, you know on the front end, they have the choices on who to hire, of course, and how this is going to go and the decisions that are made. I have a lot of clients that come to me after working with a different attorney and they're like, these decisions were made, I wasn't even asked. You know, and it cost this much and these things happen. I don't want any of that, you know, and so it really should be more of a partnership and you should be aware of those choices.
Yes. Well, I mean, what you're providing is incredible information. And I always say, like, I heard somebody say, like, when you get a book, you don't have to read the whole thing. I know your book is very comprehensive. It's like, but if you can even this chapter, look at it, go in prepared, like it can be so valuable to somebody because not only can it save you money on the divorce, you got to co-parent with this person a lot of times. So like, I think people forget that like how you go through the divorce process will have a residual effect on like your kids, the next 10 years together. So do the best you can to do a little bit of research and choose wisely.
Yeah, absolutely. The book is $9.99 for a Kindle version if you want to, you know, read and nobody knows what you're reading. $29.99 for the paperback, and then it's so big, it's 500 pages, it qualifies for a textbook hardback version, which is $34.99. But something to think about in comparison is a typical divorce attorney these days charges $450 an hour. And if they bill their hour into segments of 10, which is traditional, 6 minutes at a time, if you find a tip in this book that saves 6 minutes of your lawyer's time, which I promise you would, simply based on, you know, some of the checklists we provide alone, you will have paid for the book. And I bet you'll find more than one tip to help you out and get you on your way. If we answer a question in here that you're not sending to the lawyer that, you know, would cost you money as well, that's money savings right there. So we hope people benefit a lot from it.
Yeah, incredible resource. Where can you pick up the book?
You can get it on Amazon. You can also get it on the Amicable Divorce Network website, but you can go right to Amazon. It's called Divorce Amicably, Your Roadmap to Resolution, and has this purple color, jumps right out at you, and all 3 versions are available.
And there's nothing more fun than going on Amazon and just putting something in your cart, clicking buy, it shows up at your door. You might not even read it, but you're like, I did something. I'm learning. I'm taking a good step.
I'm ready to get ready. So we're at whatever stage you're at. Even people post-divorce, I've had some people read it because we talk about dating, co-parenting into the future, you know, some other things like that. So it really is advice for both before, during, and after divorce.
Yeah, I always tell people, I'm like, you're divorced, wait till it's done. And then you're going to see behind the curtain, you're like, and guess what's coming next? Like all these other advanced things. So, well, thank you, Tracy. This is excellent, super helpful.
Well, thank you, Rob. I really appreciate it. So if you are listening and you want to reach out to Rob or follow him on social media, you will find his information in the show notes. You can reach out and follow him and get a couple of laughs out of your divorce on Instagram and all other social media platforms. And we hope that you'll get the book, Divorce Amicably, Your Roadmap to Resolution, available now on Amazon. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.